Hi, I'm Aiden, and welcome to the second episode of my indie game devlog for the Gauntlet, a first-person platformer that focuses on a combination of momentum and precision. If you haven't seen the first devlog yet, I would recommend taking a quick look at it via the card in the upper right before watching this one. And thanks for the support on the last video. I really didn't expect to reach further than just my group of friends, and it's nice to know that other people think that the game has promise, even this early on. But anyways, let's get started on this episode, which is all about fleshing out the other half of the basic mechanics, the shooting as well as a few of the things that you can shoot. So, to get you into my headspace about what I'm going for with this game, I really like the idea of having the gun be a kind of multi-tool that changes its functionality when interacting with different things. And I think that this might open up some fun possibilities in terms of modeling and animating the gun in the future, like giving the gun different effects depending on what you're interacting with. However, the gun by itself is just a regular hit-scan semi-auto gun that you shoot with left click and that doesn't reload or have a fire rate or anything like that. I did mention in the last video that I wanted the gun to have a slow fire rate, but in thinking about what I wanted the game to be, I felt like an arbitrary restriction like that might mess with the flow of the game, and that any sort of world-based mechanic that might need some sort of restriction on how often you could use it could be done through the mechanic itself, by giving those some type of cooldown or some other form of reset on a case-by-case basis. The fire rate of the gun shouldn't really come into play anyways, as I plan to make everything need to be only shot once to perform their intended function. But before all of that, I actually made a slight tweak to the dash. For a decent bit now, I've been experimenting with turning gravity on and off in tandem with various different abilities to see how it felt. And in this one, I've actually made the dash have about a second of no gravity. I think that this is a good improvement for two reasons. One, I think that this will make aiming for a point in the air to dash to far easier, as in a large number of scenarios, you would now be able to aim straight for where you want to go instead of trying to gauge the proper arc to get there correctly. And two, I think that this gives the dash a bit more of a powerful feeling because you don't have to flick your crosshair up and back down again nearly as much to gain height. That first reason of being able to aim directly at where you want to go is especially important for my first world-based shootable mechanic, the grapple point. For the moment, the grapple points are these big orange orbs, which you shoot and then hold left click to swing from. At the moment, it's hard to tell if you're grabbed onto the grapple point or not, as there isn't really a good way to create some kind of a rope for you to swing from in Unreal in a quick fashion. I didn't want to worry about other super temporary solutions. However, the grapple points are pretty big, so if you feel like you shot it, then you probably did. This was actually a fairly decent pain to program, but the only way to make a grapple point in Unreal was to make a force constantly pulling the player directly towards the point, and a decent bit of vector math was required to figure out how much it would pull you. However, after a few headaches, I managed to get it working properly, and I'm proud to say it feels pretty good. Next comes the launch pad. This one is pretty simple. You shoot it, and it sends you flying away from it. I actually have a few parameters on these that I can choose to change on a per pad basis, the speed at which you're launched, and the amount it dampens your initial velocity. The former is self-explanatory, and the latter is there to give the option between essentially overriding the character's previous momentum to reorient them, or keeping their previous momentum to potentially let them chain the boost for multiple pads, or to add some height without taking away their forward momentum to help them clear a gap. I think that these two options are good, but I also think I'll have to differentiate between them in the future so as not to confuse the player in the heat of the moment. But I can definitely say that these launch pads feel very good to use. These two are just the beginning of these gun interactable world-based mechanics, and I have some plans for some more of these kinds of mechanics for the future. However, these two are the only mechanics I decided to develop for this stage of the project, as I feel like the scope of the game might get too big too quickly otherwise, making it hard for me to refine and polish. But we're not done with this devlog yet, as I've actually designed a small but legitimate level for this episode of the devlog. It uses both of the mechanics I've spoken on, and despite the fact that the majority of the more tricky things one should incorporate into one's level design aren't there, especially guiding the player as to how they should complete the level, I think that it feels pretty good to play following my intended route. There are a few places that you can cheese the level right now, but I'm not too worried about that yet, as at the moment I just want to make sure that the levels are fun. Just so that you don't get confused while trying to complete the level, here's the intended route. And oh yeah, I implemented a respawn system so that you can keep replaying the level, as well as a reset button on R, so you don't have to Alt F4 and restart the game every time you die or want to restart the level. Also, you can quit the game by just pressing Escape, instead of having to use Alt F4. Anyways, that does it for the second prototype of the game, which is of course linked for you to play in the description, along with all the other versions from other devlogs of mine. I hope you all are enjoying my game, as I've been having a great time making it, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to continue with it a lot in the future. The next devlog I think will actually be a break from game dev. I'm going to try and dip my toes into some world building and concept art type stuff to flesh out what I want for the aesthetic of the game. If you want to stick around for that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for a notification. If you have any questions or critiques, leave a comment below. And if you found this video particularly insightful or interesting, feel free to leave a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next devlog.